Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, senior Lakers insider, as well as lead Lakers content creator for Offside. And today on this beautiful, actually, where I live, it's really nice outside, Sunday afternoon, Super Bowl Sunday afternoon, I am joined by you guys. So the way this is going to work, it was an eventful weekend. The Lakers beat the Warriors. They signed Kobe Bufkin. And Twitter's really angry at me for not thanking the gods for Kobe Bufkin. We also saw Rob Pelinka answer some questions in one of the worst press conferences I've seen. So, which, by the way, wasn't even open to the full press, as they could have assembled. So that wasn't great. And then you guys have questions. I'm sure you have questions about the deadline. You have questions about the buyout market and the Lakers' approach to it. So we will go through all of those questions over the course of, the next, we'll say, half hour or so. I'm looking at the all right, good. So there is no mailbag questions from the iTunes mailbag. So that leaves you guys wide open to hit me with as many questions as you want before I have to run off to this Super Bowl party that we agreed to go to. So eventful weekend, loaded show, busy day, big sports day, obviously, one of the bigger ones of the year. Let's dive on in. A quick reminder, please hit that like button, as well as the subscribe button and the share button, and turn on your notifications if you want to at this point. That is totally your call. But we've grown a ton over the course of this year, and it has been fun to watch it. And it would be great if that continued on through the rest of the year as we head into a second half of the season that I don't have particularly high hopes for. Should still be fun. There's still plenty to learn about this team and all that stuff. But after that, this upcoming offseason is one of the most, I know we say this a lot, but this is one of the most important off seasons, I think, in Lakers history, in that you get a LeBron decision come in, you have organizational decisions to make, and we have the Lakers basically fumbled the first couple transaction windows with Luka Doncic, and eventually he's going to start getting kind of impatient, and rightly so. We are all getting impatient, I think, and rightly so. So, if you guys want to be here and talk that through, then all the better. Also, while we're doing house cleaning, the offside chat for games has been really fun to participate in. You can learn about that at offside.gg if you want to go check that out. But it's been really fun. Pete's in there, Damon's in there, Raj is in there, I'm in there. We all react and talk to the game. We are working on some like audio version of that we could all kind of get in there and have a little bit of fun with as well. But yeah, that offside.gg is where to find Pete has exclusive video content for Offside. I'm throwing stuff on there. Raj is throwing stuff on there. Daman is operating in kind of a consultant role there as well. So you guys, if you guys want Lakers content in short little morsels, that's probably the best way to do it. But, all right, let's dive on in. Enough of that. So the Lakers beat the Warriors over the weekend, and last night, I should say. It was an ugly game for a lot of it. The Lakers and the Warriors, like, they're off. The Warriors were without Steph Curry. The Lakers didn't have Luka. So when like both teams' primary offensive engines are out, you kind of anticipate an ugly game. Fortunately for the Lakers, they had a couple other engines that were able to make it. Like, it was close, but I was always pretty confident that the Lakers would be able to take care of business there. And apologies, I have just ravaged my mouth because of these allergies with it's just all kinds of canker sores. It's just I'm seeing my doctor tomorrow. I'm going to get a referral to an allergist and we're going to take care of this thing so I can stop talking about it. But anyway, so the Lakers beat the Warriors last night. I think the final was 105 to 99. And a few things kind of stood out. One, Austin is still really effing good. He was quiet, and then the second half happened. I thought LeBron had one of his it was if you look at it statistically, you'd be like, well, okay. But given the context of the game and how ugly a game it was, that was really important that he had the impact that he made on both sides of the floor. Luke Kennard made his debut, and it's really clear that JJ Redick is going to lean on him pretty heavily, which makes signing a guard even dumber. But Kennard, I think, finished the game. Now, I don't know if he's going to finish every game, and obviously there was an extra spot out there on the court for him because Luka wasn't available. But we know that JJ Redick has always prioritized shooting and spacing, and Kennard is going to provide that. So I think we could probably pencil in Kennard for good 15, 20, maybe even more minutes per game from JJ Redick because there's a dynamism that, he's a dynamic scorer and obviously the spacing that he provides, like you see the team's reaction to seeing him open, and that's the kind of thing that the Lakers will really benefit from. So also really liked the decision making from Kennard. I thought he had a couple of drives to the basket that were, and when you're a really good shooter, you can actually make yourself more athletic than you actually are because guys are going to be closing out at you really hard. And guys close out really hard at Kennard. He was able to drive by them. He was able to get to the rim and made a couple passes as well. Just a very good, very solid debut, I would say, from Kennard. I think he finished with like 10 points. And so that was fun to watch. But yeah, the Lakers picked up a very important win, a division win, and we move on with a decision that I am less thrilled about than the Lakers beating the Warriors. So I'm going to talk about Kobe Bufkin right now, and I want to be clear about something. I am happy for Kobe Bufkin. He has made the most of his opportunity, and he gets this gig for the rest of the year. And given that he got to the Lakers and it looked like his career might be heading towards over, it's really cool from a just storytelling standpoint that this guy has this opportunity now. Okay. So none of what I'm about to say is at all personal towards Kobe Bufkin. I am truly happy for him. However, you don't need another combo guard. I just and by the way, you don't need to sign Kobe Bufkin when you have an extra 10-day contract that you could have handed him. Like the longer that had they done the second 10-day contract and then brought him in for the rest of the year after his 10-day contract, that would have opened up more space under the hard cap that they're operating in. And I don't think any team was out there desperate to sign Kobe Bufkin. He's been playing well in the G League. By the way, when you had him on his first 10-day contract, JJ Redick barely played him. It just doesn't make sense. And you give him a 2-year deal. So now that money is on your books next year as well. It's a team option, which the Lakers probably aren't going to pick up, but still, it's just all of this is just, I didn't understand the timing of it. I didn't understand the position that they filled. You signed Kobe Bufkin to the rest of the season. You just traded for a guard. You just traded for a shooting guard. You just got Austin Reeves back. You aren't going to be missing Luka Doncic for very long. He has a minor hamstring pull. So he's only going to be missing a week or so, which, by the way, if he misses a week or so, you could have given Bufkin a 10-day contract and and he would have fit into that spot. You still have needs at the wing. You frankly have needs at the center spot because I don't think JJ Redick really trusts DeAndre Ayton. Like it was just it just didn't make any sense to me. And I'm not going to make a big deal out of it because at the end of the day, he's like a 14th or 15th guy who probably isn't going to play very much. But the Lakers' misuse of those roster spots at the end of those 14, 15, maybe 13, 14, 15 roster spots, like that has hurt them over the years. You haven't gotten anything from Adu Thiero this year at all. He is going to be working with the South Bay Lakers, and hopefully they'll get him back relatively soon. We'll see. By the way, I heard over the weekend that Adu Thiero was very much a Rob Pelinka pick, and that basically over the years Rob has gotten more involved with the draft, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Rob has gotten more involved with the draft, and the Lakers draft selections have gotten worse. But anyway, you have okay. So at the end of the roster, you have Bronny, who is on the roster for different circumstantial reasons, but still, he hasn't given you anything in a year and a half. You have Dalton Connect, and he has been a brutal first round pick that the Lakers couldn't even include, they couldn't even give him away at the deadline. So that has hurt. And then, now with Bufkin, you sign this guy who has bounced around the league since being drafted in the first round for a reason. Like that, I don't know that you can say he's an NBA player. So all of that is to say, you have Drew Timme, who I think has helped Cam Thomas to the Milwaukee Bucks, by the way. You have Drew Timme, who still probably needs to be converted because I have liked what he has brought to the Lakers in the minutes that he has played out there. Maxi Kleber playing better, does make it so that maybe Drew Timme doesn't have a spot to convert to. But if you convert Drew Timme, you could make Kobe Bufkin a two-way player, and then Kobe could come up and play whenever, if you choose to waive a player, then you could open up a roster spot for him. And yeah, you could technically still do that, but it just, you're running, I think you used a big chunk of the room that you had under the hard cap. And now you have to wait a while to fit a prorated minimum if you're ever able to for the rest of the year. It just, I don't know. And it's just, what it screams to me is Rob Pelinka being enamored by, combo guards and just needing to make that his acquisition at every turn. You had Dan Wojcicki report that the Lakers were, split on Cam Thomas. I can guarantee you the person who was pushing hard for Cam Thomas was Rob Pelinka. I can guarantee it. And look, if you're gonna sign a combo guard, it may as well have been Cam Thomas, the guy who is actually proven that he's an NBA player. Now, I think Milwaukee makes more sense for him because they need any and all talent that they can get, and he will get more opportunities there in Milwaukee than you may have gotten here with the Lakers. It's just, I don't know. And I don't want to spend any more time on it because I'm clearly more disappointed about this Bufkin thing than the vast majority of Lakers fans are. I just don't think it made any sense from an asset management position, a timing position, a positional position. He doesn't fill any need that the Lakers have. Now that Austin is now back, it just doesn't make any sense. And whatever, we move on. Congrats to Kobe though, which that probably was the biggest factor here. All right. So the next thing that I want to talk about. So Rob Pelinka, I don't know if this happened before the game or what, but he met with a select few media members, local beat writers, right? I think Dave was there, Wojcicki was there, Kobe Price was there, and I'm guessing Jovan was also invited. Um, which I think is weak. Like, I think it's pretty weak that you couldn't, like, have a formal presser and answer questions from all members of the media. Now, given some of the questions, the responses that Pelinka gave, um, you know, I can understand him not wanting to embarrass himself in front of more people, but I thought this was a terrible press conference, awful. And he comes off looking really bad, I think, for a lot of these. So we're going to go through. I have a few clips here that I grabbed from Dave McMenamin of ESPN. The first one is one of the weirder quotes that I can recall a uh, a president of basketball operations giving, where he was asked about how aggressive the Lakers were, and he said we were aggressively saying no. So does that mean he was just like, no? Like, was it a tonation? Was it an intonation thing? Was it like, you know, was it a select all, like a group text that he sent no to a whole bunch of times? I don't know. But here's Rob Pelinka talking about aggressively saying no.
I think, Dave, people like to say, we're was such and such team aggressive at the deadline, and I would say we were aggressive. And one form of being aggressive is saying no to moves that come your way that might not be best for the short and long term future. That's like being aggressive, even though you end up doing nothing, because it's hard to say.
You're aggressive and didn't you made one peripheral acquisition. What? What are you talking about?
No sometimes to getting a good player that could be a quick short-term fix but could have implications for the long term where it doesn't fit into the overall vision you have for the team. So we were very aggressive. We worked incredibly hard. We evaluated numerous things. To your point, I can't go into specific players or conversations with other GMs that would impede the trust of our business going forward, but we were super aggressive, had multiple conversations, had lots of them, got close on some things.
I love how Rob loves to make how difficult his job sounds, right? They, we had multiple conversations with a lot of teams. So did everybody, Rob. That doesn't make you aggressive. That means you did your job.
But ended up making the move we made, and we feel good about it.
So that's the first one. Aggressively saying no. I don't know the timing of how all this the order of this, but he mentions the move that they made, and it leads to this question or this response,
Yes, so
which
listen,
was
there's no team.
this is one of the crazier quotes I've it reminds me of Magic Johnson, how he was like, everybody thinks you want to put shooting around LeBron James. We decided we wanted to go the other end of the spectrum and just give him a whole bunch of creators. That experiment went so poorly that when asked about the experiment, LeBron James literally like blew a raspberry to Dave McMenamin. But here's Rob Pelinka talking about one option now that they have Luke Kennard.
In the 30-team association that doesn't go through injury stuff, so that's never an excuse. We have to build rosters that can sustain it. That said, we've really been hopeful to see our big three on the court at the same time in terms of Austin Reeves, Luka, and LeBron, and we've just had limited reps of that. So we'll be excited when we get that and see what that group can do, because we feel like there's some power in those three players playing together. And we felt like adding Luke when those three guys are on the court would actually be really helpful. Just to create some optionality with different lineups. You can see like an all shooting lineup with Rui and Luke and maybe those three guys if you decide.
What? We can see an all shooting lineup with Luke Kennard, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Rui Hachimura. Hold on. Like, just what? Why? Like, why does that thought cross your mind? Why is that the first lineup that you give people? Like, why is that the first place that your brain goes? Like, why is that? Why? Why, Rob? Why? Why? Why, Rob? Why are you in charge? Why do we have to watch a team? Why do we have to watch you fumble your way through building these rosters? Why do I have to keep coming back to Rob Pelinka being in charge of the team that I root for? Why? This can't be the first place that your brain goes. You could say, hey, we could open up the game for Austin and for Luke or for Luka and for LeBron. You could talk about how, like, he loves using that term optionality for, okay, he does give you some optionality in that, like, Luke Kennard makes it easier to play Jared Vanderbilt, for example. And he makes it easier for you to play like Adu Thero, right? Who's this athlete who doesn't really space the floor a bunch. Luke Kennard makes it easier to play Jackson. And he allows you to bat by having a shooter of Luke Kennard's quality or caliber, it means that you can do more stuff on the athletic end and have it balance out within the context of a lineup. But like the first place that you go to is having an all shooting lineup. No wonder the defense sucks. And basically, like, while Rob has been in charge, he's always had Anthony Davis. And so what he's basically always done is like, all right, AD, you're our defense. You are all of it. I am going to go out and get as many buckets as I can. And Anthony Davis and LeBron James, you guys are in charge of the defense. And it's like, okay, if this is the first thing that this guy wants to mention to reporters, and this is where his brain goes, then no wonder LeBron and AD were just like Sisyphus when it came to the defense, right? They would push that boulder up the hill, and then Rob would be there with like, boom, Luke Kennard. Like, all right, LeBron, AD, you guys got to make our defense as good as you can. Boom, we're letting Alex Caruso walk for nothing. Boom, we're letting Dennis Schroeder walk for nothing. Like, it just drives me nuts, man. I am so sick of this guy making decisions that impact all of us. This is insane.
To go small in a playoff series, but we will look forward to a long, sustained stretch of having those three guys, hopefully down the stretch of the season.
During the unbelievable. And no, like, I see your comment here. I'm telling you guys, like, hold on. Where is it? Here it is. Hoops 63, fake rage. You aren't mad. You want us to be mad. Fuck off. Like, I say that sincerely. I am mad. I'm mad because you had LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and they were capable of carrying the Lakers as an organization to the extent that they did. And time after time after time, we had to have this conversation about like whether or not this front office believed in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And time after time after time, the answer that we basically got through the actions of the front office was that no, they did not indeed believe in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And so we had to sit here while you had one of my favorite superstar combinations of all time. LeBron James and Anthony Davis in that 2019-2020 team. That's one of my favorite basketball teams of all time. And their championship that they won together now gets shit on because it was such an outlier. And the reason it was such an outlier is because this moron was in charge of the roster after it. Like, the reason everybody always wants to throw like shade on the bubble and the bubble championship was this and the bubble championship was that. And part of the reason that they get to do that is because the Lakers didn't do shit after the bubble. But part of the reason that they didn't do shit after the bubble is because Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss and Linda Rambis and Kurt Rambis are in charge of the fucking roster. That's why nothing happened after the bubble. And you have this guy, and he's talking, they're talking to him about the deadline, a deadline in which all they did when they had all kinds of expiring money in an era where all these teams are trying to shed salary. All the Lakers were able to do was trade Gabe Vincent and a second rounder for a few months of Luke Kennard, because we know they're going to let his contract expire because they're focused on cap space. And the reason that they did that is because he's like, well, we could have an all shooting lineup. It's like, okay, all teams can put together an all shooting lineup. They won't, because that all shooting lineup that they could put together would get roasted defensively. So no, Hoops 63. I am not fake angry. I am actually angry. I am actually annoyed that this person is in charge of the Los Angeles Lakers. And he's apparently a made man. God, man, what are we doing? What a stupid comment. All right, so the next thing that he does, he talks about the CBA and, how the Lakers are still navigating it. They're still trying to, figure these things out on the fly, and how the whole league is trying to figure out all of these things on the fly. So here's that quote.
I think it's clear for all the teams in the league that this dual apron system is harsh and strict, and some teams have dabbled over the second apron and realize it can be a real challenge. And I think we wanted, knowing that there's an unintended consequence when a new system comes into place, teams kind of learn their way through it. We felt like creating optionality, or having optionality now, is really a positive thing for us this coming off season, because there's some teams that maybe have gotten too deep into the aprons, and I think players we see around the league that become available when teams get in that position. So whether it's through free agency, whether it's keeping our own players, whether it's looking around the league for players that are really good that maybe teams are trying to get off salary, we feel like there'll be so many different ways to complete our roster in the offseason. That said, we believe in the power of this group, and we're not even there yet. We want to see what this team can do with the rest of the season. I wouldn't underestimate the power of what a group of brothers can do when they come together for a playoff run. So we feel like we have a really good roster, and we want to get healthy and make a run, and that'll help us evaluate end of the season stuff too. We haven't made any decisions about any of that prematurely.
All right. So it is actually a pretty simple takeaway here. This new CBA is not like, it wasn't just implemented last week. Like, this isn't some brand new thing that everybody is, like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, you don't see Sam Presti sitting there being like, this CBA is really difficult, super tricky. It's really hard to navigate. What? The Boston Celtics, they did get all the way into the second apron. And then this last year, with like Jason Tatum out and them clearly going through a transition year, they were able to shed as much salary as they needed to. It's just like this notion that it's like impossible to extend yourself and then pull it back. The reason that Rob Pelinka thinks that is so difficult is because he sucks at asset acquisition, like draft pick acquisition. He has never, I don't think, made a trade where the Lakers sent out a player and brought back a pick. That has not happened. When you're sitting here and you're trying to navigate the CBA, and all you do is spend picks to go out and get players. No, I take that back. I think he sent out Thomas Bryant. He got like a few second rounders back, which he immediately spent on Patrick Beverley. But like, yeah, that's one deal, and it's just like, the fact that like we sit here and be like, no, he did it once. It was with Patrick Bryant. Like that kind of makes my point, And so like when you're sitting here and this is how many transaction windows in a row that he's sitting here and he's like, you know what, guys, this CBA is really tricky. It is really difficult to figure out. Then that is grounds for firing, because if you haven't figured this thing out yet, or you have to continue to use that as an excuse to reporters, then you're not good enough at your job. you know, like if I was to sit here and say like, all right, like if my show um like was stuck in some range and it hadn't grown in years or whatever, and other shows were growing, you know, and I went to Odyssey and they were like, "Hey man, like part of our budget was, you know, put together with your growth in mind and show interest growth in mind, and you know, it just doesn't seem like you're doing much to grow." And I'd be like, "You know what, guys, the podcast industry is just really difficult to figure out. I'm sorry. I don't know what you know, a lot of shows are not growing to the extent. It's like, no, actually a lot of shows are growing. And that's where he's like, you know, a lot of teams are still figuring out the CBA. Yeah, sure. The Chicago Bulls are still figuring out the CBA. The Sacramento Kings are still figuring out the CBA. The Washington Wizards still figuring this thing out apparently. You know, like the bad teams are still like walking around with a blind person's walking stick and like trying to, you know, navigate this thing. It's like, I'm holding you to a higher standard than the Sacramento Kings. I am holding you to a higher standard than the Washington Wizards. At some point, Rob, the excuses start to just wear on people, and that's all he ever has. All Rob has given us, they traded for Luka Doncic, and they entered a postseason with Jackson Hayes as their starting center. And the reason that they entered the postseason with Jackson Hayes as their starting center is because he ignored Anthony Davis's request for a better starting center or another center. And after the season, he's like, well, you know, we acquired a center and we had to rescind the trade. And, you know, golly gee, you guys, this thing is really difficult. And it's like, we know it's fucking hard, dude. We know that like there are only a handful of people who can do GMing very well. And you're not one of them. And that's what we're all kind of sick of, is we're sick of listening to this guy explain to us why he's not good at his job, when all that matters is the fact that this guy isn't good at his job, which brings us to the final little note here.
Yeah, so when Mark bought the team, Jeannie and I did a really deep dive with him on sort of the areas he wants to grow and move into and get aggressive. And again, looking at the Dodgers and how they built it out has been a great sort of example in North Star. And so we're still going through that process of how we'll look in the offseason and what additions we'll make. But there will be some positive changes, and we'll build things out, again, led by myself and Jeannie and with Mark's support.
So this one is interesting. And frankly, like this is the most important thing that the Lakers are facing this upcoming summer. I know that there are decisions to make with like player options and how to use the, you know, their cap space that they've like the point of or the most important point of this Lakers offseason is exactly what Rob kind of talked about there. How you know, he and Jeannie have looked at potential additions and stuff like that. So I spoke to some people because Dan Wojcicki had that report in The Athletic about how like the Lakers plan to do this and that and the other to fill out their organization and modernize it and make it run closer to like what the Dodgers do. And you guys have heard me talk a lot about the Dodgers organization. And I'm not throwing dirt on Dan's reporting there. I'm sure like Rob just told everybody that that's the plan, is to fill out the organization and modernize it and make additions where they see fit. My only concern here, and it's a concern that people close to the Lakers have as well, is that doing that pits Rob's two kind of key principles against each other. His number one goal as president of basketball operations of the Lakers is to remain employed, or even more to the point, advance his imprints, his fingerprints on the organization. He wants more power. He's always seeking power vacuums to step into. One example of this is like with the draft team, right? Where he has become more involved with the draft process over the years. And that has led to, like Jesse and Joey Buss and their team, the impact of their team somewhat being minimized, right? And so now, if that's one of his core principles, not just remaining employed, but scaling up in terms of his impact and his like the size of his voice within the organization, hiring a bunch of people flies in the face of that principle and in the face of that ideology. Because if you hire more people and you delegate out more of that work, that lessens his impact, right? Rob also has always operated in small circles. The agency that he ran before taking over this Lakers job was historically small, especially given the amounts of money that went through that building. Was just you compare his agency at the time to some of these other agencies and the number of people that they employ and the different teams that they employ. Rob's agency at the time was very small. Other agents have told me, like, I don't know how he was doing all of that, you know. And look, credit to him for being able to run that agency with that small a team around him. And his clients would tell you that he was still an excellent agent. So in that regard, Rob's small teams didn't impact his abilities as an agent back then. And I think, that's worth noting. However, he brought a similar approach to the Lakers, and I would say the results are a little bit more mixed than his results with being an agent. Now, yes, he has high points, right? Winning a championship, acquiring Anthony Davis, acquiring Luka Doncic. I would argue that the Luka thing, the math on that is a little tricky, right? Because Nico Harrison was just hyper focused on acquiring Anthony Davis and was willing to do whatever it took to acquire Anthony Davis. And eventually they traded Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. And look, like, Rob not only, kept those talks so secretive, but he also was able to convince Nico to trade Luka Doncic to the Lakers for, frankly, pennies on the dollar. When you probably should have given up every draft pick from here to kingdom come, every young player, Austin should have been in the deal, like all of these things. And Rob, to his credit, was able to finesse Nico. And I think, he deserves credit for doing that. What he's done since, much less spectacular. And that type of that variance between the highs, winning a championship, acquiring Anthony Davis, acquiring Luka Doncic, those highs and the gap between that and the lows of the organization, where you wasted the back half of the LeBron AD era. You are now heading into a postseason where you're talking about, I don't want to undersell what happens when brothers come together. That's what happens on all teams. Shut up. So like that gap between the ceiling and the floor is as wide as it is, or as big as it is, mostly because of the small team that Rob runs with. And his focus not always being on what's best for the team, and more frequently being what's best for him. And you've seen him where things don't, a move that they make or a decision that they make doesn't go well. The focus is trimming things down and eliminating people that he thinks are leaking to idiots like me, because he doesn't want that full story told. And all that's done is led to a Lakers organization that is way behind its competition in terms of the caliber of people making basketball decisions. So I am really curious how this summer is going to go. I am sure that there will be some additions that will be made. I am sure Mark Walter is going to push for some additions to be made, and Rob is going to have to like relent on some of his basketball and business principles to remain employed. And I that's going to be really interesting how all that plays out. All right, let's dive on into a couple of questions that you guys have. Mistra, stop calling yourself an idiot. It is not it. I'm sorry, Mistra. I I just I am self-effacing, because I don't want to sound like the guy who was just on your screen. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in. We have a super comment here, which means we get to play the most important. Well, actually, the comment itself is the most important clip in our universe. So it says F Boston, and I agree. Boston! And that's how I feel about the Super Bowl too. My Super Bowl prediction is that the Seahawks will win. I think they will win handily. I think they are an excellent football team. And I am praying that that is the case because I do not want to see Boston fans happy about anything ever. All right. So let's dive on in, see if we have any questions here before we get out of here. And Muscala rental, I'm guessing. Oh, is this like another Muscala rental? No, because you didn't give up Zubats in this trade. But look, Rob had his hands in that one too. Let's see. Is there another question here? Yeah, I'm not okay. Here we go. Oh, nope. What pile of crap is this on screen? I'm hoping that's referring to Rob and not me. All right. Cody Muir, could you give your thoughts on Pelinka slash Dorian Finney-Smith drama about his injuries in the past offseason? All right. So last summer, I heard it from a few people throughout the league that Rob had told Houston and I believe another couple of teams or something like that, and this is something that like it does sometimes happen. I don't think it was it's typically as explicit as it was with Dorian, but Rob, I guess, had told Houston, hey, just so you know, Dorian is dealing with this ankle thing, and it's part of why we are kind of or we're kind of reluctant to re-sign him. Now, the bigger reason that the Lakers didn't re-sign Dorian Finney-Smith was because DeAndre Ayton had become available and the Lakers had caught wind that he was going to be available and Marcus Smart was eventually going to become available. And the Lakers basically made the trade of Dorian for Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton, a trade that, by the way, has worked out really well, right? Now, I would argue that not finding a new home for Gabe Vincent or for Maxi Kleba led to, like, if you would have done that, you would have had room for Dorian as well. And you could have kept Jordan Goodwin. And so if you say, like, would you rather have Maxi Kleba or Dorian Finney-Smith? It's negligible. If you ask me, who would you rather have, Maxi Kleba or Dorian Finney-Smith and Jordan Goodwin? Then Jordan Goodwin by a sizable amount, right? So that is where, that's so. And look, like, Rob's concerns and the concerns that he shared to the Houston Rockets wound up being well-founded because Dorian has not been healthy all year and has basically given the Houston Rockets nothing. So, like, it's one of those spots where multiple things can be true at the same time. Little shady, and Dorian's people were not happy that they found out about Rob kind of talking about his ankle to other teams. Also, Dorian had some ankle issues that have really impacted what he could do for the Houston Rockets this year. So that's the story as I know it. Let's see. Will they waive someone? I'm guessing to sign Haywood Highsmith. I don't know because like who like you're all right. So if you waive Dalton Connect, you have dead money on your books next year. And next year you might be able to flip Dalton on an expiring contract for or like at least add his contract into a trade, right? Um so I don't think they would waive Dalton. I don't think they're gonna waive Maxi Kleba because he is Luca's best friend on the team. And also Maxi recently has actually been playing good basketball. So like I don't think Maxi is going anywhere. The other option to waive is to do Thero, too early in his career to just be waived outright. And Bronny James, who clearly the Lakers are not waiving. So I don't know. Like, I guess they could technically waive Kobe Bufkin, but are you really going to do that a few weeks after you just sign the guy? Kind of doubt that as well. So I haven't asked this explicitly, but it does kind of sort of feel like this is probably the roster for the remainder of the season. Unless something crazy happens, I think this is probably what you're probably looking at. So yeah, we will see how people feel about that. We will see. I'm nervous about the amount of trust that is implicitly granted to DeAndre Ayton by not bringing in another center. From what I heard, I think the Lakers kind of sent out their feelers to see, all right, is Time Lord going to be available? Asked about that, was told definitively no. Is Yusuf Nurkic going to be available? I didn't ask about that one, but it seems like no is the response. And once the Lakers kind of sort of found out that there aren't going to be any other better options on there, they moved to bring in Kobe for the rest of the season. And yeah, I don't know. I don't love the move. All right. Let's see. Do we have any more? Nope, that'll do it. All right. Everybody, look, I am recording this minutes before the Super Bowl kicks off. And I do this every big weekend, every big event and stuff like this. And I'm going to say it again. Please be safe out there, right? Like our Super Bowl party that we're going to be going to is in the same neighborhood. It's a walk away. If that is not the case for yours, please hop in an Uber. Please make whatever arrangements that you have to make if you are going to partake. And please enjoy. Like I think it's going to be I'm hoping it's an ass kicking, but you never know with these things, and it's always fun to get together with friends, and it's always fun to enjoy these kinds of things together. All I'm asking is that if that is, if you are going to enjoy this with some friends, with your people, please do so smartly and safely. And then until the next time you guys hear from me, which is tomorrow after the game, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.